The day after my boyfriend, Damon Wright's engagement. His assistant handed me a plane ticket. "You should leave. Don't show up in City N again," he said. "Otherwise, Mr. Wright has ways to ruin you." During the years I have been with him, I have been admired by everyone and enjoyed great success. But when I left, I was so embarrassed that it was laughable. I said, "All right." However, that evening, the flight plummeted from more than 30,000 feet in the sky. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. I never thought I'd die. In my imagination, I'd take the 30 million pounds from Damon. Flee overseas, far away from all those troublesome people and events. The rest of my life would be filled with countless good days ahead. However, in the instant the plane began to fall, everything vanished. I'm so angry. The plane ticket Damon had his people book for me wasn't meant to send me off to a better life after all. It was to send me to my death. Suddenly, I remembered the last time I saw Damon. We hadn't been in contact for over 2 months by then. He was busy having people handle Lexi Cooper's divorce case, settling her and her ex-husband's daughter. He'd been occupied for so long that he finally remembered he actually still had a girlfriend. So he specially carved out an hour of his time to come to my place. Though it wasn't really my place. The most luxurious area of City N, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Without Damon, I'd never have been able to set foot in such a place in my entire life. Not long ago, we were still lying together, his arm around my waist. I deliberately teased him, scratching trails down his back. But strangely, after just a short time apart, two people who had been so close suddenly became very distant. We sat at opposite ends of the table, far apart. He said, "What do you want?" A very straightforward question. I didn't hold back either. 3 years of youth, I asked him for 30 million pounds. Of course, I admit I loved him once. But that love had completely vanished the moment I realized I was just a stand-in. He nodded and said okay, his expression very cold. "But you can't stay in City N anymore. She doesn't like being in the same place as you." Huh. What could I do? Of course I could only bow my head. Even if I disagreed, with Damon's temperament, he had plenty of ways to drive me out. By then, I'd only end up in an even more miserable state. He mentioned a place. "I have properties there. Take your pick. Whichever one you like, I'll give it to you." How generous. I smiled, "All right." He gave a slight nod, then asked, "We won't see each other again after this, can you manage that?" My existence was indeed quite irritating for this engaged couple. "Of course," I replied. "I'm an orphan. 3 years ago, I had just managed to finish university. Hearing there were many opportunities to make money in City N, I came here. I worked as a model for a few days. I quite enjoyed it and found it fulfilling, but before long, I met Damon Wright. He pursued me in grand fashion for half a month, and then we got together. He didn't like me being in the public eye. So I worked hard to shrink my social circle, until in the end it was just him. So small that in all these years together, everyone I knew was his friend, not mine. I had no attachments here. I couldn't wait to fly far away and never come back. And never see him again. But fate had other plans. I'm already dead. Yet I've seen Damon again. However, he can't see me, because I'm just a soul now. I've always been a bit vain. Before boarding the plane, I made sure to get my hair done and even applied some light makeup. It had been years since I'd worn such subtle cosmetics. Because Damon didn't like it. I was so naive back then. Everything I did was to please him. But later I realized that his so-called dislike was only because I looked most like Lexi Cooper when I had heavy makeup on, with elongated eye lines that made my gaze captivating. As everyone knows, the award-winning actress Lexi, with her big wavy hair and bright eyes with red lips, was all the rage at one point. And now, perhaps by some divine mercy, I still maintained my appearance from before I died. No wounds at all. Standing in Damon's office, I examined myself in the mirror for quite a while before letting out a contented sigh. I glanced around the room. Here, there. We'd made love everywhere. It was truly unbearable to recall. Finally, I shifted my gaze to Damon. He's 27 this year, young but already successful in both wealth and power. The biggest setback in his life was watching the woman he loved most marry someone else. And now, the spilt water could be gathered, the broken mirror mended. It wasn't a bad turn of events, after all. So even when his assistant entered the room, there was a natural smile on his face. "Mr. Wright, the nursery has been set up. And all the clothes and jewelry that Miss Cooper liked yesterday have been brought back." Damon gave a slight nod. He put down the contract in his hand, rubbed his brow, then picked up his phone and looked at it. This glance lasted for a long time. I was a bit curious and was about to lean in to see what he was looking at, when he turned off his phone. Then I heard him speak. "How is she doing now?" Assistant Gray was taken aback for a moment, then quickly replied. "Miss Cooper is filming on set right now, not far from here. Would you like to go see her later?" I had watched the TV series Lexi Cooper starred in. She played an exiled princess. Beautiful, intelligent, and passionate. In the show, she gradually won people's hearts through her own wit and strategic planning. In the end, she successfully restored her country. If I were just an ordinary viewer, I would have fallen in love with her too. But unfortunately, I'm not. My first meeting with her was terribly awkward. Because she asked me, "Do you know how much you look like me?" I nodded and said I did. She was a big star after all, and many people said I looked like her. I always took it as a compliment. She smiled enigmatically. "You've been with him for almost 3 years, right?" I said yes. She raised an eyebrow slightly. "Let me put it this way, he liked me 3 years ago." How ridiculous. I had been with him for 3 years. Not a single person told me about this. I had foolishly been a stand-in for so long. Of course, I only found out later that all those shows she acted in were carefully selected by Damon and then passed on to her through various channels. He couldn't bear to see her face any setbacks. So, under his protection, Lexi's acting career could be described as smooth sailing. And me? I had achieved nothing. All these years, I might have seemed glamorous. But in others' eyes, I was only worthy of being called that woman by Mr. Wright's side. After Assistant Gray finished speaking, Damon remained silent for a long time. He tapped his pen on the desk a few times. After a while, he finally spoke. "She should have arrived by now, shouldn't she?" This question seemed rather odd. But Assistant Gray, being the experienced professional he was, quickly caught on. He glanced at the watch on his wrist. "Yes, she should have." I understood then. Damon was asking about me. He still had a bit of conscience left. But unfortunately, I hadn't managed to reach the other side of the Atlantic. I had died just last night. Damon showed no reaction to this information. He simply unlocked his phone and looked at it again. This time, I was standing right next to him and could see clearly. On the screen was our WhatsApp chat. I saw that half an hour ago, he had sent me a message. "If you ever need any help in the future, feel free to contact Assistant Gray." In the past, I would never have left his message unanswered for more than half an hour. After hearing Assistant Gray's reply, Damon let out a cold laugh. He leaned back in his chair. "Good. Has she contacted you at all?" Assistant Gray shook his head. "No, we haven't seen each other since I gave her the plane ticket that day." Damon remained silent, his face expressionless. But in that moment, the air seemed to suddenly freeze. Seeing this, Assistant Gray hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Mr. Wright, would you like me to give Miss Sinclair a call?" Damon looked up, his gaze indifferent. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. After a while, he spoke. "No need. From now on, don't tell me anything about her affairs." After saying this, he looked at our WhatsApp chat again. The other side remained silent. Still no reply. His hand hovered over the screen for a moment. And then he deleted all of my contact information. Witnessing this scene, I finally understood. He wasn't really concerned about me at all. Those 2 sentences were just a farewell greeting before he completely cut ties with me. I was furious. How could I be dead? I had originally planned to block him as soon as I landed. and moved into the luxurious villa he had given me. But now, he had beaten me to it. It felt so anticlimactic. Thinking about this, I raised my leg and kicked Damon's thigh. Back when our relationship was still good, Damon was quite nice to me and never put on airs. Being the person I am, I tend to take advantage of kindness and throw little tantrums. Whenever he upset me, I would kick him like this. So, this action came to me very naturally. The difference was, back then, if I kicked too hard, it would hurt a bit. Now, I felt nothing at all. I couldn't even touch him. Great, now I was even more upset. After the assistant left, Damon worked for a long time. During this period, I tried to leave the office. But before I could even touch the doorknob, I found myself back by Damon's side. After 2 attempts, I understood that I couldn't go too far from Damon. Perhaps because he was indirectly responsible for my death. It's a pity I couldn't turn into a vengeful ghost. Otherwise, I could have sought revenge. Just then, a voice suddenly appeared in my mind. Finally found you. I was startled. Who are you? I'm from heaven. There was a glitch in our department. The batch of people who died in the plane crash, including you, can only stay near their closest person from their previous life for a while. I quickly spoke up. Then please take me away quickly. Oh, by the way, I have a lot of money I didn't spend in this life. Can it be transferred to my next life? Heaven knows how much I wanted to be a true wealthy lady. The staff from heaven seemed a bit troubled. I'm not sure about that, but since you died so tragically in this life, you can have a more beautiful death in your next life. All right then, please take me away now. I'm in a hurry to reincarnate. It's not possible right now. We have to wait until after your funeral. Why? During this time, your soul has formed a bond with the mortal world. Once the funeral is over, this bond will disappear. But from what I know, others have already started their funerals. You seem a bit pitiful. It looks like no one cares about your death. That's hitting where it hurts. After explaining this, the voice disappeared from my mind. I sighed, mentally going through all the people I knew, and finally confirmed. I was probably going to be a lonely ghost for life. After a long time, Damon finally prepared to leave. Because 2 minutes ago, Lexi had called him, asking him to pick her up. I followed him downstairs and into the car. I didn't look at Damon. I was looking at the scenery outside the window. Skyscrapers, bustling traffic, a prosperity that seemed like a dream. I couldn't help feeling regretful. In the prime of my life, just because of a failed relationship, I ended up like this. I was so unwilling. I hadn't even spent a penny of that £30 million breakup fee. Really, it's too much. I felt like crying. After arriving at the destination, Damon got out of the car. Soon after, Lexi came out from inside and threw herself into Damon's arms. Damon's body stiffened for a moment, then he chuckled softly. How are you? Tired? Lexi nodded, then started telling him about recent events. Her voice was very pleasant. Even the most boring things became lively when she spoke about them. They held hands tightly. They were wearing matching engagement rings. Lexi had been in the entertainment industry for many years and had countless popular on-screen couples. But looking at her with Damon now, I had to admit, they really were a perfect match. Just then, someone came out from inside. They were talking as they walked. Did you see the trending news? Last night, a plane crashed. Over 100 people, no survivors. Yeah, I saw it. I was planning to go abroad for a holiday too, even booked the tickets for that flight. Luckily, I took on this role at the last minute and couldn't go. I'm really blessed. I suddenly felt invigorated. Damon was actually quite generous. If he knew I had died, he might even help arrange a funeral for me. Sure enough, upon hearing these words, Damon's movement to get into the car froze. He slowly turned around, released Lexi's hand, and walked over. He looked at the 2 people. His expression was quite calm. He spoke. Last night? The 2 nodded, yes. Hearing this, Damon was about to ask more. But Lexi suddenly got out of the car, walked to his side, and said coquettishly, Don't you usually not care about these things? I'm hungry, let's go eat first. Earlier, Lexi was far away and wearing sunglasses. Those two hadn't recognized her. Now, as soon as she spoke, they were stunned for a moment, then their faces immediately showed delight. Lexi! Is this your fiancé? Lexi and her ex-husband had a secret marriage. But her relationship with Damon was very high profile. The news of their engagement was posted online. And everyone said they were a match made in heaven. Infuriatingly, I was also exposed because of this. Netizens didn't care about right or wrong. Lexi and Damon knew each other first. And they had many schoolmates who could prove it. So, I became the universally despised mistress. A bad woman who used a similar face to interfere in someone else's relationship. During that time, I didn't even dare to look at my phone. Lexi smiled slightly, acknowledging it frankly. Yes. Wow, he's so handsome, you two are perfect together. When are you getting married? Lexi, we're in the production next door, we've been fans of yours for a long time. But never had the chance to meet you. Could you give us an autograph? Lexi agreed readily. Damon, having been interrupted, no longer seemed interested in continuing his questions. My hope was extinguished in an instant, but I wasn't surprised. I had long known that in Damon's heart, everything came second to Lexi. Her smile, her tears, her talk of divorce. Even her hunger. He would invest 120% of his concern in all of it. Sure enough, during Lexi's autograph session, I saw him make a phone call, asking his assistant to cancel the restaurant they had originally booked, and reserve one closer to here. I followed them to dinner and then went home. Throughout the entire process, Damon was very patient. If I still liked him, I should have been very upset, wishing I could turn into a weeping ghost. But I didn't like him anymore. I just felt numb, and even, for a few moments, I would think, I've lived a virtuous life and never done anything bad. How come in the end, no one cares even when I'm dead? Entering the door, I saw that the mansion had completely changed. It was totally different from when Damon and I were still together. Martha, the housekeeper, came down from upstairs, holding the hand of a little girl who looked only 3 or 4 years old. She was wearing a puffy dress. Her hair naturally curly, with big beautiful eyes. There was even a diamond hairpin in her hair. Lexi beckoned, Wendy, come here. She had her ex-husband's surname, Wendy Ford. Wendy ran over, threw herself into Lexi's arms, then grabbed Damon's hand. Daddy Damon. Damon squatted down, patted her hair, and asked very patiently. Were you good today? What a happy family of 3. Who would have thought that the formidable business tycoon Mr. Wright would bow to love to such an extent, raising someone else's child? Wendy nodded repeatedly, I was good. Just then, the doorbell rang, a bit jarring, interrupting everything. Martha went to open the door, and after a while, came back with a parcel. She looked at Lexi hesitantly, and after a moment, spoke. This seems to be, from Miss Sinclair. I was momentarily stunned. And memories deliberately forgotten after death floated up in my mind. That's right. Before I left, I had sent a box to Damon. There were 2 things inside. The appearance of this box suddenly silenced the mansion. Until Wendy started crying loudly in Damon's arms, pointing at the box in Martha's hands. Throw it away! It's from that bad woman, wah wah. With her fuss, Lexi immediately became flustered. She lowered her head, gently coaxing her daughter. Okay, we'll listen to you. Mummy will throw it away now. After saying this, she gave Martha a look. Martha understood, but her expression was somewhat troubled. She looked at Damon. Sir. The man lowered his eyes, staring at the thing in Martha's hands for a good while. Finally, he spoke. Throw it away. Martha sighed, had no choice but to turn around and leave. After a while, she came back, her hands empty. Lexi watched and casually said, Your stand-in lover is quite persistent even after death. I gritted my teeth and swore. Damn it. I really am a persistent ghost. I'm the bad woman, the stand-in lover. If they have the ability, why don't they hire someone to perform an exorcism? Hold a ceremony and make me disappear completely from this world. Hearing this, Damon's expression remained unchanged. He didn't refute it either. He simply said, "Is that so?" Lexi laughed softly, asking Martha to take Wendy back to her room. Then she nestled into Damon's arms, with a hint of melancholy in her voice. "Wendy is adorable, isn't she? If only she were really your daughter." I've met Lexi's ex-husband, a well-known entrepreneur, mature, steady, and charming. Lexi's family wasn't wealthy, and she had always been ambitious. Like the heroine in a romance novel, in her second year at university. At the prime of her youth, she encountered both Damon and her ex-husband. Back then, Damon was just a student, always keeping a low profile at school. Lexi did have feelings for him, but those feelings were far from enough to secure her future. Her ex-husband, in pursuit of her, invested in a play for her. By the time Damon found out about this, they had already registered their marriage. At the same time, Lexi also learned about Damon's background. Of course, she regretted it. But being proud as she was, she never contacted Damon again after that. Until a few months ago, when she discovered her husband's affair. That's when she sought out Damon again. And thus, my beautiful love story came to an end. Lexi looked up. "You know, I damaged my body when I gave birth to Wendy. So in the future, I might not be able to." "I don't mind," Damon interrupted her, his voice deep. Lexi sighed in relief, glancing towards the door, and spoke in a coquettish tone. "That's easy to say, but what if?" "I'm just saying, what if your stand-in lover got pregnant with your child? Would you still send her away so decisively?" Damon frowned. "I never make such assumptions." "Oh, come on, just tell me what you think." What else could he think? Of course, he'd make me get rid of the baby. Although, even when we were together, he had mentioned marriage to me. We had matching couple rings made. And we had discussed what if we had children in the future. But it was all just what if. The reality is, as soon as Lexi turned back, without even a word of goodbye, he immediately distanced himself from me. Later, he coldly watched everything I went through. Then he paid me off with money. At this moment, Damon remained silent for a while, but then just pushed Lexi away. His voice was cold, yet seemed to carry a hint of weariness. "Don't mention her again." Lexi persisted, "But you were together for so long. Haven't you thought about her at all these past couple of days?" Damon pressed his lips together, looking down at Lexi coldly. "She's already gone, aren't you satisfied yet?" Originally, Damon had planned to send me away before their engagement. But Lexi wasn't happy with that. "Why don't we invite her to our engagement party? The girl has been with you for a while, she should witness this day, shouldn't she?" It was this statement that delayed my departure by half a month. At their engagement party, I sat in the audience, witnessing the entire event. As fate would have it, Wendy was sitting next to me. She looked at me, sweetly calling me sis, and asked me to serve her some food. But just as I raised my hand, she fell off her chair, getting cut by a broken glass on her arm. She cried out, "Sis, why did you push me?" Everyone looked at me with contempt. They thought, this woman is truly vicious. Failing to secure her position, she resorts to hurting a child. Before I could react, Damon slapped me. After the slap, I looked up to see Lexi looking at me triumphantly. She said, "I should have known better than to let you come." And now, as a ghost, hearing this conversation, I finally understood that whether I was innocent or not didn't matter to Damon at all. Everything he did was just to make Lexi happy. Lexi pursed her lips, then suddenly reached out to unbutton Damon's shirt, leaning in to kiss him. Damon didn't refuse, but he didn't actively embrace her either. Just then, his phone rang. Lexi, somewhat annoyed, snatched the phone and put it on speaker. Crouching in the corner, I heard the person on the other end say, "Hello, do you know Miss Sophie Sinclair?" Damon's eyes flickered slightly, about to speak. But Lexi had already said, "No, we don't." After saying this, she immediately blocked the call and turned off the phone. "I don't care, I finally have a moment to rest. No matter how urgent it is, you have to stay with me first." They went upstairs. Fortunately, the distance wasn't too far. I could move freely downstairs without having to follow them up. And so, I spent many more days near Damon. On the first day, they went to see a film together, an older one. It was Lexi's choice. Damon paid little attention throughout, busy messaging Assistant Gray on his phone. After work updates were reported, the screen showed the other party typing for a long time. Yet, no message came through. Damon frowned slightly and typed, "Do you want time off?" Assistant Gray quickly replied, "No, Mr. Wright. Have you seen the trending topics? Miss Cooper's new film is about to be released. Is that so? Remember to remind me when it's out." I clicked my tongue. This Assistant Gray really knew how to talk. The cinema was crowded. Earlier, I had squeezed next to someone and watched a few short videos and 2 episodes of a miniseries. I'd also seen the trending topics. A day later, the plane crash was still trending high. Impossible to miss if Damon were to look. Perhaps that's what Assistant Gray wanted to ask about. But Damon had previously instructed him not to relay any more news about me. So, Assistant Gray had posed the question so indirectly. After replying, Damon looked up and froze for a long while. He just realized this film was my favorite. I'd made him watch it several times with me. As we watched, things would heat up on the sofa. Young and passionate, we paid no heed to day or night. After a while, Damon suddenly stood up. Lexi, wearing sunglasses and a hat, asked softly, "What's wrong?" "I'm going out for a bit." He left the cinema, then the shopping center, and found himself outside, unconsciously smoking cigarette after cigarette. The next day, Lexi went to the film set, and Wendy came down with a fever. Damon personally took her to the hospital. After finally calming Wendy, Damon stood in a corner, gazing out the window, lost in thought. A nurse passed by, not noticing him, and chatted casually. "Remember that feverish child from a few days ago?" Yes, it was quite a scene. The hospital director himself came to receive them. But I recall it was just a small cut. Who knows? Children can make such a fuss. But I remember a young woman who came along, at the very back. I heard she was the one who deliberately hurt the child. I know who you mean. She was quite pretty. She was muttering about bad luck in Rolls Royces. Then she started crying. I gave her a tissue. She was polite, thanked me and all. Didn't seem like a bad person. Yes, that person is me. I agreed to delay my departure and attend the engagement party. The condition was 2 Rolls Royces. I've been so poor. And during those 2 months when Damon deliberately distanced himself from me, I tasted quite a bit of hardship. After receiving that slap, I initially wanted to lose my temper on the spot. But the thought of the luxury cars made me hold back. Moreover, I really had no way to deal with them. At this moment, Damon stood nearby, and hearing this, he actually smiled. But in the next instant, he couldn't smile anymore. Because another nurse spoke up. I remember now, I had seen her before that. I went to deliver something across the street and caught her coming for a prenatal checkup. It's hard for me to describe Damon's expression at this moment. His lips were slightly parted, his back a bit hunched, and his hand at his side made a feeble grasping motion. His expression was somewhat bewildered. Just then, Wendy's voice came from inside. She said, "Daddy Damon." Damon went in. He stood by the bed, looking at the little girl who was delirious with fever, and suddenly spoke. "That day, was it really that pretty lady who deliberately pushed you?" Wendy was just a child, and she was feeling terribly unwell. She stuttered for quite a while. And finally, unable to keep up the lie, she said with a pout, "I fell on my own." That night, Damon stood outside the ward, staring at the obstetrics department across the way, for the entire night. As I watched his silhouette, I remembered too. I was pregnant when I died. The reason I agreed to leave so readily, apart from being blinded by money, was also because I wanted to give birth to this child. If Damon had known, he definitely wouldn't have agreed. It wasn't really because I loved him. It was just because his genes were good enough. I thought it through clearly, with the money he gave me. Raising a child on top of that, life would be absolutely wonderful. As the first light of dawn broke, he called the hospital director. By the time he hung up the phone, he already knew that I had left while pregnant. He put away his phone, and leaning his forehead against the wall, he let out a very brief laugh. "Sophie Sinclair, you're really something." 2 minutes later, I saw him skillfully enter a string of numbers. It was mine. But he seemed lost in thought, hesitating to make the call. After a while, he opened WhatsApp, found my number, and sent a friend request. I couldn't quite understand his intention. Was he trying to pressure me into terminating the pregnancy? Sigh. No need for his pressure now. I'd be gone, taking one more life with me, leaving no trace behind. That afternoon, Wendy was discharged from the hospital. But Damon wasn't at home waiting, nor was he at the office. Instead, he drove to the place where I used to live. This was the house he had given me, and after we separated, he never mentioned it. I had sold it off without hesitation. I even sold it at a high price, which made me happy for days. But now, I watched him enter the passcode and open that door. He walked in. The interior hadn't changed much, exactly the same as when I left. So the buyer was him all along. Did he love this house that much? He gave it to me, then bought it back from me. I'll never understand how the rich think. He walked around the house, finally sitting down. Someone called him. It was Assistant Gray's voice. "Mr. Wright, I've scheduled the wedding photo shoot for the day after tomorrow. If there's no problem on your end, I'll inform Miss Cooper." Damon remained silent for a long time. He didn't say a word. I felt a bit tired too, so I sat down on the other side of the sofa. In the next moment, Damon's gaze suddenly shifted. It fell on me. I was startled, almost thinking he could see me. But he slowly looked away, and finally spoke. "Cancel it." "Pardon?" "But I checked, and both you and Miss Cooper are available the day after tomorrow." "How about next week then?" These past few days, I had learned. Their wedding was set for 2 months from now. "No, I mean, we're not doing the wedding photos anymore." I couldn't quite read Damon anymore. After saying that, he spoke again. "Book me a flight ticket, I'm leaving tonight." With those words, Damon seemed to have finally figured something out. He leaned back, a hint of tenderness in his expression. He said, "I need to find her. She left in such a hurry, we have so much left unsaid. Do you think she'll be angry with me for being so decisive back then?" I was stunned. Was this she Damon spoke of, me? Damon sighed, gripping his phone tightly. He was usually so cold and distant, rarely opening up to anyone like this. These few sentences were already unprecedented. He had always thought Lexi was his true love. But over these few days, he suddenly realized it might have just been an obsession. He couldn't lose his Sophie and their child for the sake of an unattainable youthful fancy. However, Assistant Gray across from him didn't immediately agree. He hesitated before finally saying, "Mr. Wright. A few days ago, Miss Sinclair passed away. That flight crashed." I suddenly became alert. Damon's hand trembled slightly, and his face turned very pale. Everything he had deliberately ignored these past few days now surfaced before his eyes. The unanswered messages on WhatsApp. The trending topics repeatedly mentioned. One by one, incident after incident. If he had paid just a bit more attention, he wouldn't have only found out about this now. Assistant Gray's voice came from the other end, very cautiously. "Mr. Wright?" Damon's voice became a bit hoarse. "When did you find out?" "Not long after it happened." He paused for a moment, then added, "The day you told me not to inform you about Miss Sinclair's matters anymore." I nodded silently. Indeed, that's how it was. I could vouch for Assistant Gray. Damon was the type of person who was most unreasonable and decisive in his actions. Once he made a decision, his subordinates could only follow orders. Or rather, in Assistant Gray's mind, I was insignificant to Damon. He wouldn't think of me again in the future, let alone ask about my whereabouts. As an assistant, why would he go through the trouble of offending the future Mrs. Wright? Damon's face darkened. Even standing next to him, I could tell his current state was very off. In the next moment, he stood up and violently kicked the coffee table in front of him. My heart ached a little. This coffee table, I had personally chosen it. It was quite expensive too. Damon got up, as if suddenly remembering something, and unblocked the number that Lexi had previously blocked. Then he called back. His fingertips trembled as he unconsciously took out a cigarette from the box on the coffee table and lit it. Sophie Sinclair, she's dead, isn't she? There was a moment of silence on the other end before a response came. Sir, please accept our condolences. After hanging up the phone, Damon sat alone for a long time before driving home. As soon as he entered, he had only one thing to say. You knew all along, didn't you? Lexi, wearing a face mask and watching a film, instinctively replied. What are you on about? Why are you back so late? Wendy's been asking where you were all afternoon. You'd better go upstairs and check on her. Damon's lips twitched as he walked over to Lexi. His eyes were cold. I had never seen him like this before. Let alone Lexi. She backed away slightly, her voice rising. What's got into you? I'm not like that stand-in lover of yours, I've got quite a temper. As these words fell, Damon seemed to recall something and suddenly started laughing. As he laughed, tears began to fall. I remember, she had quite a temper too. That day when I slapped her. I thought she'd make a scene at our engagement party, but she didn't. Only the favored ones can afford to be fearless. By then, I already knew where I stood in his heart, how could I dare? Lexi's face suddenly turned pale. Sophie Sinclair? You found out about her? Yes. So what? Don't tell me she's dead now and you've just realized she's the one you actually love? Damon pressed his lips together. Yes. The wedding's off. I'm not marrying you. Lexi abruptly stood up. No, you can't do that. You promised you'd marry me, treat Wendy as your own daughter, and be good to us forever. How can you go back on your word? Damon narrowed his eyes and spoke slowly, emphasizing each word. If you hadn't insisted on her staying for our engagement party, she wouldn't be dead. Lexi was stunned, then started laughing. You're blaming me? You're actually blaming me. If you hadn't been hung up on her, would I have had to do this? You probably don't even realize, do you? You often call out her name in your sleep. And when we go shopping, you always pick out the styles and sizes she liked. You've fallen for her. If you ask me, you're the hypocrite, and you're the one who got her killed. Besides, when I said to let her stay for the engagement party before leaving, you were clearly relieved. You wanted to see more of her too, didn't you? Damon listened to all this in silence, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I stood nearby, feeling a bit dazed. What on earth was all this about? Outside, it had started raining, with thunder rumbling loudly. Inside, the two of them stood facing each other. From upstairs came Wendy's cry, "Mummy, Daddy." Damon looked up, his eyes bloodshot, and pointed at the door, saying to Lexi, "Get out. Get out now." Lexi and her daughter left in the middle of the night. After witnessing this drama, to be honest, I didn't feel any sense of satisfaction. I found it all rather absurd. At this point, I almost wished that Damon's heart had always belonged to Lexi. Otherwise, my death would seem utterly ridiculous. Love that comes too late is not worth having. After the mansion finally fell silent, Damon slumped onto the sofa, his gaze empty. After a while, I heard muffled sobs. Come to think of it, I had never seen him cry before. A long time passed. And I was nearly dozing off when Damon suddenly stood up and ran outside like a madman. He went to rummage through the rubbish bins. The rain pelted down on him, and before long, he was a complete mess. Fortunately, as a ghost, I couldn't feel any of it. He mumbled, "Where is it?" I was wrong. I shouldn't have thrown it away. Oh, so he was looking for the parcel I had sent him. He searched all night long but found nothing. He sat dejectedly by the door. Thankfully, this was a gated community, so there weren't many people around to see him in this state. Martha didn't sleep here at night. When she came over the next day, she was startled. "Sir, what happened to you?" A glimmer of life returned to Damon's face. He spoke, "The package she sent. You threw it away at the time. But I can't find it." Martha paused, her expression changing slightly. After a moment, she said, "Actually, I didn't throw it away." Damon looked up, his eyes blazing with an intense light. "Where is it?" Martha walked towards her restroom, with Damon following closely behind, matching her every step. Martha sighed. Miss Sinclair was a good girl, without a mean bone in her body. She went so far away all by herself, who knows when she'll come back. Damon's steps faltered, his throat bobbing. She won't be coming back. Martha didn't understand the meaning behind these words. Assuming that Damon was determined to keep me away forever. She shook her head. What a shame. She used to ask me what you liked to eat, saying she wanted to cook for you. She even mentioned that she didn't actually like wearing such heavy makeup. But she did it because you liked it. She once asked me if she looked as pretty as Miss Cooper. The young lady was all smiles, and I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth. I told her she was even prettier than Miss Cooper. Oh, how happy she was to hear that. Damon turned his head, his hands trembling uncontrollably at his sides. He was on the verge of tears once again. The box finally ended up in Damon's hands. He treated it like a treasure, taking it back to his room. As he placed his hand on top, he noticed it was covered in dust and dirt. Quickly, he used a nearby tissue to wipe the box clean, then refrained from touching it again. Instead, he went to take a shower and change into fresh clothes. It was probably the longest shower he had ever taken. Watching all this, I felt bored. Death is like a candle being snuffed out, everything becomes meaningless. He opened the box, his expression gradually hardening. Inside was an invitation to their engagement party. I had written a line on the back. The wedding favors tasted awful. I didn't push anyone. Go to hell. Well, in the end, I was the one who died. I suppose this was karma for my cruel words. There was also something else. The matching rings we had made together as a couple. His ring, whether intentionally or not, had been lost long ago. He had rarely worn it anyway. I had found it in the bushes outside my apartment building. Now, I returned it to him along with mine. After all, he had paid for them originally, so it was only right to give them back. Damon stared at them for a long while before finally removing the ring he wore with Lexi from his finger. He put on the one from the box instead. After that day, he was depressed for a long time. Not long after news spread of his broken engagement with Lexi. She was exposed for being a diva and bullying newcomers. Her reputation plummeted. This time, however, Damon didn't help manage the situation. He even said, "Add fuel to the fire." Men can be terrifying. As the days passed, he still hadn't arranged my funeral. Even the staff member from heaven couldn't help but come to remind me. Should I ask the higher-ups for a favor, let you speak to him one last time? But that very night, Damon got into a car accident due to not having slept for many days. On the day he was close to waking up, the sunlight was beautiful. I stood by the window and suddenly spoke. Damon. His eyelashes flickered slightly, as if he wanted to open his eyes but couldn't. I said, "I have no family or friends. For old time's sake, could you arrange a funeral for me? Make it lively. We won't meet again in the next life." After I finished speaking, the hospital room was quiet for a long time. After a while, I finally heard a very low voice say, "All right."